Strategic decision-making is vital for leaders because it guides long-term goals, adapts to change, and enhances competitive advantage. It transforms short-term reactions into a clear path for future success. Strategic decision-making is the continuous process of defining long-term organizational goals and choosing courses of action that align with your mission. It involves analyzing market trends, assessing internal capabilities, and allocating resources to ensure sustainable growth and a lasting competitive advantage. Effective organizational decision-making techniques help you cut through the overwhelming amount of data and choices by providing systematic ways to evaluate options. Strategic decisions differ from daily operational tasks in several distinct ways. They include: first, they have a long-term impact. They shape the direction of an organization over years, rather than days or weeks. Also, they are more complex. They require analyzing vast, often ambiguous information and weighing multiple variables. Strategic decisions typically require increased resource allocation. They determine where to direct capital, time, and talent. And contains a broad scope. They ripple across the entire organization, affecting multiple departments and stakeholders. Systematic decision-making methods improve choices by reaching better outcomes through improved analytics and structured steps. The core benefits includes: less bias. Bias is a disproportionate weight, leaning, or prejudice in favor of or against an idea, thing, or group, usually in a way that is closed-minded or unfair. Clear rules and steps stop personal feelings or fast guesses from changing the final choice. Less uncertainty. Uncertainty means a lack of sureness or having imperfect and unknown information about outcomes, measurements, or future events. Using orderly facts and data helps show what might happen next. Open proof. Proof is any evidence, argument, or logical steps that establish the truth, validity, or fact of something. Every step can be seen and checked by others, which builds trust in the choice. And save time. Time is the most valuable resource that we have in the workplace. Clear frameworks stop groups from wasting hours in messy talks and repeat arguments. Just like the right tool is needed to work on a car or fix a plumbing issue, choosing the right methodology for strategic decision-making can be the difference between success and failure. Additionally, depending on the scope and urgency of your choice, different tools can optimize your process. Options include: decision matrix. Ideal when you have multiple alternatives. You score each option against weighted criteria, such as cost, time, and quality, and calculate the totals to aid in making a selection. A SWOT analysis is best for strategic planning. Here you evaluate internal strengths and weaknesses against external opportunities and threats. Cost-benefit analysis. Used for weighing the expected financial and resource costs against their projected returns. Pareto Analysis, or the 80-20 rule. This is best to help you prioritize. It identifies the top 20% of variables or issues that will yield 80% of your desired results. And the OODA loop. Great for time-critical, high-stress situations. You cycle through 4 steps: observe, orient, decide, and act to make a decision. Now we will discuss these types of strategic decision-making techniques in more detail. First is the decision matrix. A decision matrix is a structured tool that evaluates and prioritizes options by scoring them against predetermined, weighted criteria. It turns complex, emotional choices into data-driven results, helping you overcome analysis paralysis and select the best path forward. Building a decision matrix relies on a simple 7-step framework to keep your decision objective and evidence-based. The first step is to define the goal. This is done by writing a specific statement defining what you need to decide. This keeps your scoring focused and prevents scope creep. For example, select the best project management software for the Q3 launch. Next, list your options. Write down the choices you are considering as the rows of your table. At this point, there is no reason to eliminate options. Following the process will do that for you. For example, Acme Systems A30, Jones Technologies S4, and Mega Core Series 7. Then identify the criteria. Determine the factors that matter most for this decision, such as cost, time, reliability, or quality, and list them as columns. The criteria are the factors that are important to the organization and can separate the options from each other. The fourth step is to weight your criteria. Not all criteria are equally important. Assign a weight, usually on a scale of 1 to 5, to each criterion based on its relative importance to the outcome. For example, if price is the most important factor, it would be given a higher weight than something that may be less important like processing speed. Next, set a rating scale. Choose a numerical scale to score how well each option meets your criteria. For example, 1 equals poor and 5 equals excellent. The scale can be 1 to 10 or 100. The important consideration is that the scale must suit the evaluation being performed and be equally applied. Then score the options. Evaluate each option against every criterion and record the score. Each department or stakeholder should participate in the scoring process because each may have a different perspective on what is important. For example, the finance department may think it is cost, where the quality department may see reliability as the most important factor, and the data entry team may focus on ease of use. And finally, calculate the results. Multiply each score by its criterion's weight and sum these totals for each option. The option with the highest final score is the recommended choice. There are some common variations of the decision analysis. They include: 1 is a Pew matrix. It is ideal for early-stage brainstorming. This may help eliminate options for analysis when there are a lot available in the marketplace. Instead of precise scoring, you evaluate each new option against a baseline standard by marking them with a plus sign for better, a minus for worse, or a 0 for the same. And another is the Eisenhower matrix. It is a simple time management tool that helps you prioritize tasks by sorting them into 4 boxes based on urgency and importance with do first, schedule, delegate, and delete. This process can then help prioritize projects that can flow into using a decision matrix. The next strategic decision-making process we will cover is the SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is a strategic planning framework used to evaluate an organization's, project's, or individual's competitive position. It breaks down external conditions and internal capabilities into 4 actionable categories: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are a part of an internal evaluation of the organization, while opportunities and threats look at the external environment. The SWOT framework is as follows. Strengths are what you do exceptionally well, unique advantages, and core assets, such as proprietary technology, loyal customer base, or strong brand identity. Strengths should be reinforced and leveraged to increase the capabilities of the business. Because they are internal, they are completely within the control of the organization. Weaknesses are internal limitations, resource constraints, or areas where you fall short of competitors. They must be improved upon or overcome in order for the company to grow and thrive. For example, high staff turnover, outdated software, or limited capital. Organizational weaknesses are a result of internal oversights or failures. Opportunities are favorable conditions in the external market or environment that you can leverage for growth, like emerging consumer trends, untapped markets, or beneficial regulatory shifts. They sit outside your direct control, but you can plan for and exploit them to grow your business. And threats are external challenges or risks beyond your control that could impact performance, such as new competitors, economic downturns, or supply chain disruptions. Rising costs, new competitors, and changing laws. You cannot control these conditions, but you can plan for them. A SWOT analysis evaluates a company or project's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. To do one effectively, establish exactly what you want to evaluate before starting. Setting a clear SWOT objective requires defining a precise scope, focusing on the purpose of the analysis, and establishing measurable outcomes. Avoid broad statements like improve the business. Instead, target a specific product, market shift, or operational bottleneck. A SWOT analysis is typically used to evaluate an organization or department, but it can be highly effective when focused on a specific project, new product rollout, or a company-wide strategy. 2. Build your grid. Create a 2x2 matrix with 4 distinct quadrants for strengths, the internal advantages and assets. Weaknesses, the internal limitations and areas for improvement. Opportunities, the external or internal changes you can leverage. And threats, the external challenges or risks that could hinder success. 3. Brainstorm categories. Gather a diverse team and begin populating the matrix with bullet points. The initial session is for brainstorming, and therefore should not rule out suggestions. There will be time for that later on. Here are some considerations for brainstorming. For strengths, what does your business do exceptionally well? What are your unique assets or competitive advantages, such as loyal customer base, strong financials, or proprietary technology? Under weaknesses, where are your detractors or underperforming areas? What resources are you lacking, or where do your competitors outshine you? Then opportunities. What favorable trends, market demographics, or unmet consumer needs exist in your space? Are there potential new partnerships or technologies to adopt? And finally, for threats. How many competitors exist? Are there shifts in consumer behavior, economic instability, or new regulations that could harm your operations? Map internal strengths and weaknesses alongside external opportunities and threats, then score each factor by impact and feasibility to select top actions. Refine your findings by identifying the most impactful factors. Rank which opportunities yield the best return and which threats require immediate mitigation. Avoid wasting resources on insignificant threats or exaggerating strengths. And 5. Create an action plan. An action plan is a clear guide that turns a big goal into small steps. It lists what work to do, who will do it, and when it must finish. To create an actionable plan from a SWOT analysis, prioritize your findings, assign specific owners, deadlines, and tracking metrics to each step. Write clear goals, a task list, assign responsibilities, deadlines, and tools needed. Sometimes you may find it valuable to use a backwards planning technique. Backward planning is a strategy where you start with a final deadline or end goal and work backward to map out required tasks. Key steps include defining the end result, breaking down milestones, estimating time per task, and setting start dates. Now let's look at the cost-benefit analysis strategic decision-making technique. A cost-benefit analysis, or CBA, is a data-driven process used to evaluate the total expected costs of a decision against its projected benefits. The goal is to determine if a project or investment is financially viable and to choose the option that delivers the highest return on investment. To perform an accurate cost-benefit analysis, follow these structured steps. First, establish a framework. Define the scope of your analysis and the specific objectives you want to achieve. Establishing a framework means setting up a basic structure of rules, steps, or ideas to guide a goal, define a process, or solve a problem. Identify costs. List all upfront and ongoing expenses. Include direct costs such as materials and labor, indirect costs including overhead, intangible costs, for example decreased morale and slower workflows, and opportunity costs that can include things like missed revenue from other projects. Identify benefits. List all expected gains. Include direct benefits such as increased revenue and cost savings, indirect benefits including higher productivity and better customer satisfaction, and intangible benefits like improved brand reputation. Assign a monetary value. Estimate a dollar value for every cost and benefit. For intangible items, use reasonable estimates or forecasting methods. This is especially important for long-term projects because of the time value of money. It is the core financial principle that money you have right now is worth more than the exact same amount in the future because of its potential impact of inflation and for it to earn interest and grow over time. And lastly, compare the totals. Subtract or divide the total costs from total benefits to calculate your net gain and weigh your alternatives before making a final data-backed decision. Many organizations will have an expected cost-benefit ratio to authorize project or process to proceed. To standardize your comparison, use these widely accepted calculation methods. First, net present value or NPV. This is the result of the benefits minus the costs adjusted for the time value of money in today's dollars. A positive NPV indicates a financially viable project. So if a project that will take place over 3 months, and the benefit is expected to result in $120,000 in savings, and it will cost $40,000 to implement, then the net present value of the project is a positive $80,000. A pretty good return. If the numbers were reversed, and the project would provide a benefit of $40,000 and a cost of $120,000, then it would have a negative net present value of $80,000. Not something that should be pursued. Another method is the cost-benefit ratio or CBR. It is a financial indicator used to evaluate whether a project or investment is worth doing by comparing the total expected monetary value of its benefits against its total costs. A cost-benefit ratio is the result of the benefits being divided by the costs. A ratio greater than 1.0 means the total expected benefits outweigh the total expected costs. Taking the example from before, a project with a $120,000 benefit and a $40,000 cost would result in a 3-to-1 benefit. This would be a project that should be pursued. And lastly, return on investment or ROI is a simple financial metric used to measure the profit or loss generated by an investment relative to its cost, expressed as a percentage. Return on investment is the result of the net benefits divided by the costs, and then multiplied by 100. This measures the percentage of profitability percentage relative to expenditures. Using the example again, a $120,000 benefit with a $40,000 cost would result in a 300% return on investment. A very positive return. The fourth method is the Pareto Analysis. Pareto decision-making analysis, or the 80-20 rule, is a technique that states roughly 80% of outcomes are the result of 20% of the causes. It is used to prioritize tasks, identify root causes of problems, and allocate resources where they will have the greatest impact. Follow these steps to focus your efforts on the vital few issues that will drive the majority of your results. First, identify problems. List the issues, challenges, or goals you are evaluating. The more effort put into this stage, the more effective results the process will produce. Next, determine causes. Find the root causes of each problem on your list. This should be done using a root cause analysis, or RCA, which is a problem-solving method used to find the core reason for an issue. Click the subscribe button and access FSTG's root cause analysis video to learn more about various principles and methodologies such as the 5 Why and fishbone diagram techniques. Next, score the problems. Assign a weight or score to each problem based on frequency, financial cost, or time lost. Not all problems or results have the same impact, so providing weight will adjust the data to ensure the focus is on the right things. Then group the problems. Organize your list by category, such as customer complaints, system flaws, or product defects. This will help in comparing apples to apples instead of conducting a scattered analysis. Next, tally and rank. Add up the scores for each group and rank them in descending order, from highest impact to lowest. And finally, take action. Focus your resources and develop solutions for the top priority problem or problems first. According to the Pareto analysis, putting effort into the top 20% of the issues should address 80% of the problems. Here are some examples of results that may be found using a Pareto analysis. Quality control. You can trace 80% of product defects back to 20% of manufacturing processes. Sales and marketing. Roughly 80% of your revenue might be generated by just 20% of your clients. And time management. Completing 20% of your most critical daily tasks can yield 80% of your expected results. And lastly, we will cover the OODA loop. The OODA loop is a four-step decision-making model: observe, orient, decide, act, developed by U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd. Designed for dynamic, high-stakes environments, it emphasizes outmaneuvering competitors by continuously cycling through the loop faster than they can. As the acronym implies, there are 4 stages to the process. When presented with a decision, the first step is to observe. Gather real-time data from your environment. This is the input stage where you take in unfolding circumstances, competitor actions, and sensory information. Next, orient. This is where you contextualize and synthesize the data. Widely considered the most critical phase, this involves filtering raw observations through your past experiences, biases, genetic makeup, and cultural background to make sense of the situation. Then decide. Formulate a hypothesis or select the best course of action based on your orientation. This will take into consideration past experiences, training, results, and sometimes feelings. And lastly, act. Implement your chosen decision and test it in the real world, which in turn changes the environment and generates new observations, restarting the loop. As the acronym of the recognized process, there are 4 stages you will learn from the results of exercise that will be used the next time you find yourself at a similar decision point. The core philosophy behind the OODA loop is that the person or organization who can process information and execute actions the fastest gains a massive competitive edge. By reacting more quickly to changing circumstances, you disrupt your opponent's decision cycle, forcing them to react to outdated information and eventually make missteps. Originally conceived to help fighter pilots win aerial dogfights, the OODA loop is widely utilized across various high-pressure fields. Business. Used by executives and project managers to rapidly adapt to shifting market conditions and competitor product launches. Law enforcement and security. Helps first responders assess chaotic situations, avoid paralysis by analysis, and take decisive, defensive action. And cybersecurity and defense. Integrated into automated, AI-driven defense systems to detect and neutralize threats at machine speeds. Utilizing systematic methods for strategic decision-making is crucial because it reduces cognitive bias, aligns actions with long-term goals, and mitigates risks through structured data analysis. Research indicates that improving the decision process increases return on investment more effectively than relying on analytics alone. We hope you found this training video valuable. Please click the subscribe button to access additional FSTG training videos.